years. She has acquired her master's degree in town planning in 2002 and then her doctorate in architecture in 2016 with the research topic Gender Appropriate Urban Public Leisure Spaces, the case study of Mumbai, both from the Pune University. Currently, she is the principal at MES Pillai College of Architecture, New Panvel, Mumbai. Her research areas include gender and spatial planning, social sciences, behavioral sciences, etc., with respect to architectural planning. She has published 18 research papers in various national and international journals and in conference publications. The Board of Studies in SPPU and a co-guide for PhD in architecture at Amity University, Delhi. She has also been invited to various national conferences and workshops as an expert speaker. Dr. Sudnya Mahimkar, over to you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And good evening, everyone. I think most of you might be have attended the previous drop session also, and we are seeing you again here. So welcome all of you. Welcome all the new attendees also. It's a pleasure to see you in this second session of drop workshop. I will be giving you just some introduction and glimpses of how statistics is relevant and important even in architectural research. So I will just share my presentation. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So about statistics, I think we were introduced to statistics back somewhere in our school days. You must remember drawing some graphs like this, like from some equations that are provided to us, and then we were supposed to do it in this graph book. But formally, statistics is almost non-existential during our BArch and MArch as a part of syllabus. We all consider that statistics is not for us because architecture is a very creative field, and hence we have nothing to do with numbers and its analysis. And that is why subconsciously, most of us hated probably theory of structures. Although research in BArch and MArch projects or thesis calls for collection of data in terms of observations, room dimensions, activities, behavioral pattern, etc. And the analysis of such qualitative data is also done with a general understanding of the data. That is how we generally analyze it. Sometimes we use Excel sheets to create some pie charts or bar charts. And that is only our brief encounter with statistics limited to this. So it's all in our mindset that architecture and statistics are not made for each other. And hence it is perceived as incomprehensible to most of us. So statistics, what is statistics? It plays a vital role in our understanding of the facts and their impact on our mind. Let us take an example of this latest heat wave in the United States and Canada. You all must have received these kind of pictures on your WhatsApp. And you can see that first picture is from Canada and how people are trying to relax themselves in water. The second is this forest fire due to the increase in heat. And the third picture is talking about a generic historic heat around the globe. Now, when these pictures are received by you, you generally take it very lightly. And that is why you must have seen on news channels, particularly when they convey these kind of news, they support it with this some graphs or bar charts. And then they try to convey that you can see previous peak of heat is this much. And this year we have this much temperatures. And then you can see that what is the great difference in the heat and how serious is this heat wave. So when such pictures are supported with some statistical graphs where we can see these differences, that impacts us mentally and makes us believe that, yes, this is a fact and how significant it is. Now, let us take example of this COVID-19 latest updates of second wave. Yeah, the table here, it shows us COVID-19 rise in number of new cases and new deaths in India as compared to the world. Similarly, the graph here, it shows that India accounts for 38% of global new confirmed cases. And this table and graph together makes us believe the fact, conveying the seriousness of it. So we can say that the story we want to tell or share with the audience makes a substantial impact, and it is considered authentic if supported by the data and numbers, and the otherwise boring and plain data, it can be given meaning if a story is narrated through the data. So stories give life to data and data gives authority to stories. But you know, we all are subconsciously aware that statistics is playing role in our everyday life. We just call it common sense, known facts, or general knowledge, observations, experience, etc. Let us consider the example of this statement, like avoid evening time travel to reach home early. We all know that in the evening, there is more volume of traffic, maybe traffic jams. And if we want to reach early, then we should avoid this peak hour traffic. So it is a general knowledge. And we say that no rocket science is required to know this fact. Very true. It's no rocket science, but definitely knowledge of statistics in your subconscious goes into it, as we are subconsciously relating many variables such as say volume of traffic throughout the day, different hours of the day, various street widths that you will be traveling through. Then there are certain bottlenecks, certain signals, timings, etc., etc., etc. Similarly, let us consider the second statement, like buy air conditioner in winter. Okay, this is also a general knowledge or a common sense. So again, here various factors such as say comfort temperatures throughout the year, demand and supply through the months of the year, then companies dropping sales in winter and offering attractive discounts to create artificial demand and ultimately increase the sales and profit are being evaluated in our subconscious mind. So this whole process of explaining and understanding this statement involves statistics. Okay, let us similarly see these some statements that is related to our field here. This is longer time taken for construction increases the cost of construction. So again, this is a common knowledge. Second is say physical activity leads to better health, or longer sitting hours affect the health negatively, or maybe say gardening activity leads to satisfaction. So these are again statements that we make through our common knowledge. We will deal with it later. We will refer to the same statements and let us see how we can connect it with statistics. So here, these are, we can consider that these are basic assumptions for our research. But if we are considering those statements to for our research purpose, or we are considering that as a basic assumption or hypothesis, then the research asks for evidence. So what is research? I know all of you must be aware of it, but again, I'm just brushing up the basics of research. So research is to go about seeking knowledge, systematic investigation, and study of material sources, etc. Why? To establish facts and reach conclusions. Or research is an organized inquiry carried out to provide information for solving problems. So these are research problems. Then research is a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a topic or issue. And research consists of 3 steps. First is we pose a question. Second is we collect data to answer that question. And third is we present an answer to the question. So with reference to the steps in research methodology, we can see that literature review and research concept development, these are the part of first question, that is posing a question or first step, where we are collecting data to answer the question. It involves design testing and finalizing research instrument. Then the second is data collection through survey and interviews, data input, data cleaning, and its organization. And the third part, that is presenting an answer to the question, requires to analyze the collected data, quantitative and qualitative analysis, and then document finding and drawing conclusions. So after all these steps, we start our writing report to produce the final document. When we are discussing collection of data, it includes primary and secondary data to address our empirical research. I hope you all know what is primary data, what is secondary data. This data or information obtained through observations and documentation of certain behavior, and it is a quintessential part of the scientific method of research. And this inquiry or collected data can be of 2 types, that is quantitative and qualitative. So we all by now know the difference between secondary data and primary data. To collect primary data, we conduct our own surveys that can be qualitative or quantitative inquiries, and we can use various types of surveys. Survey design is a major and most important part of our research to get homogeneous and flawless data as far as possible to make its analysis feasible. So we must know beforehand, and we must ask questions to ourselves before designing a survey. So what are the questions is, what is the primary aim of conducting this survey? Then how do I plan to utilize this collected data? And what type of decision I plan to take on the basis of these above mentioned points? And for all these pre-preparations for designing the survey, we must have basic knowledge of statistics. So research methodology involves various steps. We all know these steps. However, when we complete the survey and received all the responses from the sample identified, we end up collecting a lot of data. So what to do with this data? It's a big data that is collected. Now here, a statistics plays an active role. We now know that the methods of statistical analysis that we will be employing and the type of relationship between the variables that we are visualizing had a strong base of statistics. And after analysis, to make meaning to that data and narrate the story out of it, we again need statistics. So continuously we are talking about statistics. Let us see what statistics is and statistical analysis is. So statistics basically deals with numerical data, and that is why numbers play a very, very important role here. The prerequisite of statistical analysis is collecting numerical data or convert the collected data into numbers to make a sense of it. So statistics is a collection of data, its interpretation, and its representation. So what is statistical analysis then? It is a science of uncovering patterns and trends in data using statistics. So statistics provides a way of organizing data to get information on a wider and more formal, that is objective basis, and not relying on personal experiences or subjective data. So what is statistics? What are the features of statistics? It is basically aggregate of facts. It does not deal with individuals. It is always numerically expressed. It is affected by various variables, that is multiplicity of causes. Then reasonable accuracy is expected in the data that is collected. It has to have a predetermined purpose. So you must know for what purpose you are planning a survey, for what purpose you are collecting a data. Based on that, you will design a questionnaire, and based on that only you will try to analyze the collected data. Okay, let us see why and how we apply the statistics. So statistics, as we have seen again, that it is a fact in numbers, or it is a numerical data. We can present the data in a very, very simple form. That is the use of statistics. One of the use of statistics. It compares various facts related to data. It helps other sciences as well, and it helps forecasting and predicting with respect to our hypothesis or problem. Now let us see a few examples of how statistics is related in architectural PhD thesis that are generally multidisciplinary. So even though we are doing research on that particular topic, that is in architecture, still it has it is connected to various other fields. So say here this urban housing in seismic areas, it is related to it is related to disaster management. Then redesigning life and art, so it deals with modern art. Occupant behavior of air conditioning, thermal comfort. Health consideration, it deals with health. Continuity of divine presence in Baroque architecture deals with history. Consumer influences on the life cycle of housing deals with economics. Designing dynamic environment for performing arts deals with performing arts. So our architectural research relates itself with various other disciplines. So it is basically a multidisciplinary inquiries. Okay, now let us see this collection of data. Let us go back to this definition of statistics. It is a collection of data, its interpretation and representation. Now let us deal with this first part, that is collection of data. So no collection of data is always to be pre-planned in research design. So data collection has to be pre-planned through our research design, and research design has 4 phases or stages. That is sampling design, where you will be taking decision regarding what is your universe and what will be the samples and how you will conduct the survey through that sample. Okay, second is whether you will be having some survey that are based on observations. Then the third part is statistical design, that how the data will be collected and how you will be analyzing it. And the fourth is operational design, that is how you will be conducting the survey on fields. Okay, so let us see those statements again, which we have referred to previously. Say the first statement says that longer time taken construction increases the cost of construction. So can construction cost be reduced by finishing construction early or fast? This can become your a research question when we are considering the basic assumption as longer time taken for construction increases the cost of construction. So it can be asked again in a different form, like are construction time and construction cost interrelated, or is there a relation between these two? So there can be various hypotheses you can pose, like there exists a relationship between construction time and cost. They are interrelated. So here a correlation comes into picture, whereas you can ask this question, or you can have this kind of hypothesis that there exists a causal relationship between the construction time and cost. It means that construction time is an independent variable and whether that affects the cost. Okay, so here regression comes into picture. So there are these two variables, as we say, we have seen that independent variable construction time and dependent variable construction cost. Apart from that, there can be some additional variables that are making the difference and giving you a different outcome, like say accessibility to site or transport or labor, etc. So these kind of variables, though they are not part of our research, we still have to consider these variables. So they are called as lurking variables or extraneous variables. Now here you can see that the data that is collected is mainly in a numerical form, or it is a quantitative data. So we can consider this as an example of quantitative research and analysis. Okay, whereas this is a second statement that we are talking about: physical activity leads to better health, or longer sitting hours affect health negatively. Now, though this is a common knowledge, when we consider that for a research and we consider that as a basic assumption, we start asking research questions based on this. So our research question can be like, can one build a good health by increasing physical activity? Or are people with considerable physical activity more healthy? Or are health and physical activity interrelated? So here again, you can have two hypotheses. Say, first is there exists a relationship between physical activity and health. So that talks about correlation. Or you can assess the causal relationship between physical activity and health. So if physical activity is changed, then it will affect or impact the health. So again, here we can see that there are two variables, that is physical activity and health. Again, are there any lurking or extraneous variables like genetics, lifestyle, food habits, which also we will have to consider when we will collect the data and look into this particular hypothesis. So with reference to the same statement or same assumption, if we are taking it ahead and we are talking about these two variables, now it is very difficult to collect numerical data with respect to these two variables, like physical activity. How are you going to measure physical activity? When we are talking about health as another variable, how are you going to measure health? So there is a basic question of measurability. How are we going to measure these? Or are there any units? So for these two variables, then you may need to identify the indicators. So indicators of physical activity and indicators of health. So I have just mentioned here few, but it can be, the list can be more. Like physical activity, you can judge or measure through exercise patterns, the job type or work pattern at home, etc., etc. Similarly, for health, you can have different indicators like say BMI, sleep quality, lifestyle diseases, existence of lifestyle diseases, etc. Now, these indicators, whenever you are collecting data, you have to see to it that the collected data should give you some numbers. Then only it will be fit for statistical analysis. Okay, so there will be some lurking variables that are controlling your research and the outcome of it, like age, genetics, food habits, lifestyle, etc., etc. Now, when we have collected this type of data, that is quantitative and qualitative, let us see in what form we get the results. So how do we interpret the data? Now let us see, there are two types of data. We have seen quantitative and qualitative. Similarly, for analysis, we have quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis. So here, suppose if we have only quantitative data and we have to analyze in a quantitative manner. It will give you straight away statistical and mathematical analysis, and the numerical data will be presented in terms of outcome also. Whereas if your data is quantitative, but you have to make a meaning qualitative, in that case, you have to search for and present the meaning in results of the quantitative processing. So you got your results in quantitative. Now you have to attach the meaning to it and convey it as a qualitative input of your own research. Okay, now if the data is qualitative and you have to analyze it quantitatively, then what can be done? Like these previous variables we have seen, here you can pose a questions in your questionnaire so that you will get the numbers. Or maybe if you are getting answers in say text or words, then you have to assign the meaning to those words. So you have to code it. And based on scoring system, then you can number it. Okay. So you can, or the data can be quantitatively analyzed. Whereas qualitative data and qualitative analysis, this is an interpretative test studies, and it will depend on individual, basically how you look at it. Of course, there are various ways of doing it, like hermeneutics, grounded theory, phenomenology, etc. But these are mainly subjective outcomes. Okay, so when we finally get the data after the surveys are conducted, the data preparation is to be done. So you have to edit the data, you have to go through whatever data that is collected, scrutinize it, remove the errors. You have to remove the incomplete forms or incomplete responses that you have received, some ambiguous responses that you have received. You have to eliminate those. If it is a qualitative inquiry, then you have to assign the numerals or symbols to the responses that you have received, that is coding. Then you have to classify it, put it into the table, that is tabulation, and summarizing it. And probably you will be entering the data in some spreadsheet or in some software. Okay, so type of statistics that we generally apply, of course, I'm not going much into detail, but it can be a descriptive statistics or it can be inferential statistics. So descriptive statistics is a largely study of distribution, one, two, or more variables, and it includes correlation and causal. This I am referring because we have already discussed it previously. So correlation talks about the relationship between two variables. It does not talk about causes. Okay, but causal analysis considers that there is one variable which is making an impact on another variable. So there is a causal relationship between these two variables. So this is about descriptive statistics, whereas there can be inferential statistics, that is also known as statistical analysis or sampling statistics. And it is used for mainly testing hypothesis. Okay, so we have collected the data, we have interpreted it through whatever various tests. Now we have to convey it to the maybe your audience or the future researchers, and how to represent this data. We will see that there are these various ways of representing the data. This is a Venn diagram. Then a bubble chart, radar chart, scatter plot. Yeah, you can see this pie chart. Bar charts, pictographs, pyramids, then a combination of it. So there are various ways that you can convey the interpretation of your data, which makes it more interesting and more understandable by even a layman. Yeah, and this is a popular way that we convey, architects convey our data, that is through maps also. So there are various analysis tools. Now in this workshop, probably you will be learning various tastes and ways of analyzing your data. Apart from that, there are various softwares also that are available for you to analyze your data. Commonly used are like SAS, SPSS, then ArcGIS. And through like ArcGIS, you can prepare such models. And this is how it can be represented also. Like some relationship, it can be presented on map. Okay, now let us take few examples of architectural PhD thesis and how they have used statistics and how statistics made it easier to convey the outcomes of it and how it impacts our mind positively. Okay, so this is one example that is an underground space use. Now here the researcher has considered three aspects of underground space usage, that is comfort aspect, then safety aspects, and the third was aesthetics aspects. So for each aspect, he had probably different indicators and he had inquired into that. Okay, so you can see the results of this reliability analysis, that is for these three factors, comfort, safety, and aesthetics. And it says that it is reliable. So you can see there are 20 items based on this. First is comfort and functionality. Second is safety and security. Third is aesthetics aspects of it. And then putting it together, the overall experience in underground space and the willingness of the users to use such underground space. So this is how he has processed. And everywhere now these 20 items, the regression analysis is done. And ultimately it is said that they all are important and to be considered because the p-value is less than that is 0.05. So of course you will learn much more in detail during this workshop. Okay, then next is example is design, construction, and analysis of solar passive architecture, incorporated modern residential building for thermal comfort in warm, humid climate. Now here, the researcher has considered three ways of construction. One is traditional construction method. Second is modern construction method without any intervention. And third is modern construction method with this solar passive architecture applied. So you can see here the analysis of it, of all the three methods and the outdoor temperature. So it is all these methods with respect to outdoor temperature and what result it is giving. So here you can see that the traditional method and the modern construction method with solar passive applied, they give a similar results. So it is conveyed through tables, it is conveyed through charts. And that is where we can say that statistics adds a rigor and robustness to your research. So rigor is the quality of being extremely thorough and careful. Now, when your data is analyzed, you have to convey it in a way that it becomes interesting to the audience. So it is like a storytelling through your data. You have already done the filtering of the data, you have already done the analysis of it. Then you visualize that how it is to be conveyed. In, of course, we have seen there are various ways of conveying, interpretation methods and conveying methods. And then you have to narrate it through your research. So you have to build a story so that it becomes a interesting for your audience. But remember that statistics has its own limitations. Okay, statistics deals with only numerical facts. It is only study of aggregates. Another thing is it is not the only method. It requires a homogeneity of the data. Results are true only on average and it does not recognize individuality. And that is why we need little expertise on this particular subject, even at the time of visualization of research design itself. So when you are designing your surveys, when you are designing your questionnaire, okay, so at that time also you must have the basic knowledge of statistics. Then only you will be able to give justice to your complete research. Then another thing is misuse of statistics is possible. And statistics is only means and not a solution. Okay, so let us see these examples of spurious correlation, because we have seen here that misuse of statistics is possible. So how statistics can be misused? Let us see that. This is very interesting and a funny examples of spurious correlations statistics. So you can see here the correlation is established between number of pirates and global average temperature. So you can see here as number of pirates is decreasing, the global average temperature is increasing, and this is highly correlated. Of course, it sounds funny, and it is funny, but it is possible through statistics to prove such unrelated variables and to show that they are related. Okay, so let us see another example. You can see here maths doctorates awarded and uranium stored at US nuclear power plants. So again, it through statistics, the correlation has been established. So it says that there is a relation between maths doctorate and uranium stored. So how absurd it sounds, but it is possible to prove it through statistics. So people who drowned and marriage rate in Kentucky. So these are few funny examples where we can see that statistics can be used to prove anything that you wish to. Okay, so statistics can be made to prove anything, even the truth. So obviously, as a researcher in architectural research, we plan to use statistics to prove the truth only. Okay, another this is another quote, a very popular quote in opposition of statistics. There are very many researchers who do not trust statistics much. So there are three kinds of lies, that is lies, damned lies, and statistics. So this is how statistics is pursued by some of the user researchers in the fraternity. So basically statistics are like clay of which you can make a god or devil as you please. You can see that reflected in various news. So there is, if there is a bias, then we can say that the statistics can be misused. And that is why, that is the very purpose that we need expertise. We have to gain some expertise in statistics so that we can give justice to our research and we can be honest to our research. Okay, so that's all. Thank you all. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Mahimkar. I would like to open the floor for any questions. Dr. Vaishali Latkar, ma'am.
Yeah, madam, it was indeed very simplified and informative. I hope this must have cleared a lot of doubts about how we use statistics in architectural research. I think we can take up one or two questions. There is a question Shreya Sudesh is asking. He's asking, can you explain the एक second. Yeah. Can you explain the difference between regression and correlation?
Yeah, as we have already seen, correlation is basically exploring the relation between two variables. Now, these two variables can be independent variables. They are not dependent on each other. So the examples that we have seen, those funny examples that we have seen, those are two independent variables. And it is possible to establish the correlation between these two variables. Whereas regression is about causal. Like, there is one variable which is affecting another variable. Yeah, have I stopped presentation?
Yes, now you have, and
Right.
we have shared our slide, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so regression is basically about causal analysis or causal relationship between two variables. Okay, so like we have seen, say the temperature rise and the forest fires. So is that interrelated? So correlation exists? Yes, correlation exists. Then we have to search for, is there a causal relationship exists? If the heat increases or the temperature increases, then because of the heat, forest fires take place. So there is a causal relationship that exists. Okay, and there we use regression. I hope I am clear.
Yes, I think this must have cleared doubt. Uh, this is not a question per se, but there is an interesting take by Isaac Matthew. He's saying architecture is mostly considered as an art. Art cannot be quantified because it is predominantly an idea. Therefore, would it easier understand, remove confusion if it is called statistics in building sciences instead of statistics in architecture? So, yes, um, Nathu sir, would you like
Yeah, I think when we are talking about statistics, we simultaneously talk about qualitative and quantitative data. And I fully agree that architecture, in most of the cases, we collect the qualitative data. Okay, but if we are going for, say, statistical analysis to have that kind of rigor and robustness in our research, then we generally convert this qualitative data into quantitative data. Because, you know, when you are asking, you are asking for some some information regarding, say, users' perceptions or users' experiences, you are interviewing those people, that is fine. But for survey purpose, you cannot ask your respondents to write an essays. Am I right? Though they are talking about their perceptions, their experiences, their own opinions, definitely your respondents will not be interested in writing essays about their experiences. Okay, in that case, you have to, as a researcher, you have to initially identify that what can be the responses, what various responses can be there for this particular question, and beforehand only you can put all those responses as multiple choices for your respondent, and then he can probably tick as many as applicable, or maybe one of it that is applicable, right? And in that case, you will be able to convert whatever data that is collected in terms of these MCQs, you can convert it into quantitative. I'm not saying that qualitative analysis is not possible. It is possible, that also we have seen. But if you convert it into quantitative and if you do the statistical analysis, as I said, it makes it more reliable. I hope I answered this.
Yes, indeed. I would also like to add,
Yeah.
in the beginning also I said that we are talking about architectural research, and the domain is very vast and wide. At one point, at one end of the spectrum, we could be thinking about performance of a material, which falls in a very quantitative kind of domain or deductive domain. At the same time, even if you try to bring in behavioral research in architectural domain, we are again talking about deductive research. So I think it is about statistics in architectural research rather than building sciences or architecture. Architectural research is a parent domain, or kind of umbrella domain. That's what I feel. But this is open for discussion definitely. Maybe some other time this can be taken up. Also, there is one more question by architect Ravindra Sarnai. He is asking
Mhm.
how to evaluate a questionnaire in statistics.
How to design a questionnaire? I think in itself, it is a one whole topic for discussion. So only thing I can tell you is before finalizing your questionnaire, you must know that what exactly you expect from your research, what is your hypothesis, what are your research questions, and you are supposed to collect the data with reference to those research questions or to answer those research questions. And that is how you should be careful while designing your questionnaire. I think Nathu sir, you want to add something into this?
Add in the sense is what you rightly said, that our research objectives have to be very clearly spelled out.
Sir,
Because
can
it's
you
so
be a little louder? We
Can you
can't
hear
hear you.
me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, as she rightly said, that at the outset we should be able to first foresee what our research objectives are, because it many times happens that not only postgraduate students but also PhD scholars, they prepare a questionnaire, collect the data, and then in the end they realize that what I was looking for and what I've collected. So it should not be like a pin in a haystack. So very objectively you have to make a questionnaire, and as she rightly said, questionnaire making itself is a workshop topic. Sometime
Yes.
maybe in drop we can a new topic for drop maybe.
Very true.
I think we can take up one or two more questions. There is a question by Parvati Ramesh. She's asking how to present maximum data with clarity in statistics. Are there any thumb rules?
How to present the data? You can be as innovative as possible to present your data, I would say. I have shown you various ways of representing the data, but apart from that, each researcher can have his own way of presenting the data to make it more interesting and conveying the outcome of it.
Okay, one more we'll take up. Shrikant K is asking how to formulate parameters for assessment and collection of data if research is still ongoing, like resilience in cities.
I think Nathu sir, please, I think you can answer this question.
I didn't understand what is research is ongoing, but basically parameters are again variables. Means if you are studying resilience of cities with respect to something, so your variables have to be very clearly defined, and then your parameters, and then you start collecting the data. So that should not happen after have started collecting the data. Initially itself, or typically when you have very less available in the field or in the research domain, normally what is done is that you go for a qualitative inquiry which is inductive in nature. And for an inductive inquiry, you normally set out without any broad hypothesis or anything, and you simply start collecting the data and then inductively code it and find results out of it by pattern finding. So that is typically qualitative. So it largely depends upon whether you have designed your research as a qualitative research or a quantitative research. And the decision also lies upon your literature review, that what kind of gap you have found in the literature. If it really says that you can that very less knowledge is available, probably you set out with a qualitative inquiry. But it is again very generic. You have to, it depends on research question to research question. Like something about architecture in pandemic, we really didn't know what to do past 1 year. So now it is kind of a inductive inquiry which somebody can take up. But because we don't know, right, the correct theories coming out of it and all that. So pattern finding can help. But something like heat gain, which is for past 25 years, people have researched it. So hardly there is a gap. So some deductive inquiry can come in that case. So parameters will come only after you have done extensive literature review.
Yes, as you rightly said, sir, this parameters can be an outcome of the previous, that is pilot inquiries, maybe a qualitative inquiry, and after qualitative inquiry, whatever is the frequently used terms, those can be coded and then can be adopted in the questionnaire to have the quantitative responses.
Okay. May I request Ruchita, can you unmute Vasudha madam? She's trying to tell us something.
Right.
Maybe
I
she
also
can
saw her.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can see her comment in the
Yes,
chat.
ma'am. I've
Huh.
enabled her audio.
Vasudha madam, welcome.
Sorry, I just joined. I think a couple of I joined it and then again I was disconnected, but it's fine. So it was very interesting, and somebody is asking about that. How the questionnaire, actually it is really we have to make a separate workshop because different kind and how to make it very rigorous questionnaire, and we use it as a tool as it is tested. It is tested. Usually we send it to minimum 4 expert who are the subject expert, and out of that one or maybe fifth one must be a statistician. So for rigorous, so it will be checked properly that whether it is going to give us maybe some scope for either analytically done or maybe graphically presented or statistically tested. So this is we have to design it separately. And another thing about that disaster research is called that if it is still ongoing, we do it. Sometimes happens that, for example, currently we are researching on pandemic. So every time research is ongoing, and then sometimes a new thing came up. So we revise our parameters and then we start it again as a part 2. So this is possible that if we are already maybe set some variables, so not necessarily we have to stick on it. Many times we have to just take some variables out even out of that. So it is also possible, but it needs very rigorous kind of literature and very strong maybe reason that why we are including this parameter and why we are deleting some. That is it. So that's why I think. And another thing, quantitative research is just maybe comparison. No. We use it for so many things. We just compare. We just see the pattern of maybe something which is going up or going down. Usually in clinical research, in disaster research, and in marketing research, it is not always the comparison. It is the market survey sometimes. So if we look after that, how this product is working. Even in architecture, it's not always the comparative study. For example, maybe environmental study, not necessarily we compare the maybe two sets of parameters. So this is possible. So really, I missed some part of it, but it was really good. So now, fantastic, very good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I think that answers Professor Shilpa's question too. We'll take up the last question. Participants, we would like to answer everybody's questions, but considering time constraint, please note down your questions. If we couldn't address it in today's session, we will try to do it on the last day where we have kept one session for discussion. The question is, how coding of qualitative data is done. I think this can be taken up on the last day, Vandana madam, since we are focusing more on quantitative aspect here, statistics per se. Yeah. So this brings us to the end of the first session. Thank you, Sudnya madam, for your very insightful session. I think we'll take a quick